Hi everyone, and the dude in the cardigan is back, and yeah, it's like there's a whole roll of English buses coming now, one after the other. You're probably wishing I'd stayed quiet. Well, the other day I was reading from the introduction, and I stopped short of the last couple of pages, and so I thought I would finish it off because, it's always good to finish what you start, as it were. And also gives me a reason to have this kind of moment of virtual interaction. Um, so yeah, of course, if you are interested in reading the book, you probably don't need the introduction because you're going to read it anyway. Um, but maybe there's a lot of people who are not interested in buying the book, which is fine. But it allows me to transmit some of the essence of the book in this moment. So, welcome to you and to everybody. And if you're familiar with my work, and as comes out in this book, the threshold that I'll be, of course, reading from the Forces of Techno-Materialism and the Struggle for Humanity's Soul. Um, my perspective, of course, is that the physical world of matter, the 3D world that we often talk about, that we live through, is not does not subsist on its own. In fact, without what we may call, in crude language, a higher reality, um, interpenetrating this material reality, you could say the infusion of spirit with matter, we wouldn't have really existence as we know it, because we wouldn't have a sustainable matter reality on its own. So all the time there are kind of metaphysical influences and forces interpenetrating into the world of matter. And that's my perspective, and that's where I frame the context of material in the book. So of course, if that's different from your perspective, you may find some of my extrapolations or my examinations of the world difficult to take in. But of course, everyone is allowed their opinion and point of view, and I'm very happy to be able to have an opportunity to share mine. And so I think it's important to have that perspective because it allows us to understand that we are not alone. Life is just not what we see in front of our eyes. There is much more happening, which I think gives us hope because we're not just at the beck and call of material forces. There are higher forces coming in, which are developmental, you could say evolutionary, and they're very powerful forces. So we should not just take what we see in the world around us from the material, technological forces and feel that we are overwhelmed, we are being dominated. We're only being dominated if we are being led to only look at this very reduced slither of life. And of course, there's a lot more going on, which I think is to the benefit of humanity, of course. So I'm going to continue where I left off the other day, and when I talked about the shore, the wave arriving to the shore. So I've got a couple of pages, and hey, let's go. So the climax of despair indicates that a breakthrough is imminent. Yet any genuine breakthrough will not first emerge upon the exoteric level, that is, upon the external stage of physical manifestation. These are the false revolutions of hope that only return to the same game. All revolutions are co-opted and merge once again into the fold of external historical events. The only real breakthrough can be upon the esoteric level, through the realm of the metaphysical and how this is transmitted through the material domain. Within these dimensions, we are influenced through the morphing and pulsations of time and space. We can sense this through our own life experiences. When we are calm and relaxed, space seems more real to us than time. Just as in meditation, when time falls away and we exist within a realm of space. And yet, when we are anxious or restless, we sense the onrush and the deliverance of time. Right now, in our world scenario, we feel time not just slipping by, but rushing past us frantically. The wind blowing against our ears. Everything is moving fast now, and space is being eliminated. In virtual spaces, especially where avatars mock our personhood, space is eliminated entirely as it is substituted by the false space of the digital. And communications zip around our heads, mimicking a new realm of the demolished time of the instantaneous. There may be a singularity coming, yet it is less likely to be the one that the tech transhumanists are eager for. Yet before we reach that threshold, we must be cognizant of the fact that the lowest forms of manifestation are likely to be witnessed as they are to be displayed and or exposed during the final part of this cycle. Many people are currently feeling and experiencing the exhaustion of chaos, the exhaustion that arises before the coming threshold looms. Yet, as it is said in Psalm 23:4, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And it is somewhat like that valley which we are today traversing, in order to reach and hopefully pass the entry into a different era of the human life experience. First, though, the shadow and the void, the separation, must be experienced on a collective level before any closure can be expected. This is perhaps what has been somewhat mythically referred to in various guises as hell. Although for myself, I would deem this as a state of non-realization or not being. And these are the extremes of a polarity that faces humanity within its current manifestation in this dimension. The human being is having to face the expressions and manifestations of the absence of being. Yet this may not necessarily be a state or space of non-being, for this is often recognized as a spiritual state that transcends the realm of the senses. In these times where we witness the rising of the machinic impulse and its adherents, which shall cause discomfort for humankind, the absence of being is put forward in these pages of the book as a not being. It is human to ask questions about our being and essence. Without questioning the very beingness of our nature, we are falling short and doing a disservice to our responsibility as a human being. That is why, surrounded by an onslaught of mechanicalness and automation, I refer to the encroaching state of not being. This state and the dilemmas it poses suggest an uncomfortable road. However, it is never a smooth road on the approach to a threshold. It is more like a cobbled walkway. This book deals with what is ahead for humanity if it collectively chooses the wrong path, the negating path, or what may be called the path of denial. That is, a rejection of the genuine path of the human spirit and its capacity to develop and evolve along its corresponding trajectory. Within the pages of this book, I examine the machinations of techno-materialism and the issues facing humanity in this turbulent phase of its collective journey. Some of the material is justifiably dark, not really dark, but I say it could be, for it reflects the shadows that are presently in play all around us. Yet, dear reader, that's you, be heartened, for where there are shadows, there will always be the origin of light. Before there can be revelation, the atrocities behind the curtain must be recognized for what they portray, and also for what they portend for a future we do not wish to arrive to. By showing the path of not being and evolutionary stagnation, it is my hope that I will have sufficiently shone a light upon the great nobility of the human species and the authentic choices we need to make to enable that nobility into expression. Now, the reader must bear with me. We have work to do. End of introduction. So yes, we do have work to do, which is a form of inner work. Um, my perception is that if we can progress individually, each person at a time, then with some inner work, then we can contribute that to the grander uh, process, unfoldment. Each of us has that responsibility because, as I say, I do feel, not believe, I know, I sense, I feel totally that humanity is a noble species. It's connected to source, connected to the sacred, vital energy that gives life to everything. Um, we don't need to plug ourselves in to an electrical source. We don't need to produce electricity to make us run. We are sustained. The spirit is eternal, it's sustained by source. The physical body needs nourishment, but we are sustained by source. You can't replace that by, in this realm, you can't replace that by a machinic entity that's plugged in to an artificial form of energy. Um, so we shouldn't forget that we still have a long way to go. We're not finished yet. And I think we need to be cognizant of that while seeing the sea of forces and influences through which we move through. Understanding that, for me, will help to understand and view where we're going, where we can go, and not to be disrailed by all the negative propaganda and all the material kind of negative news that we get entrapped within, because that there are secondary things. When we see the leaves blowing on the branch of a tree, we know that the leaves are blowing because there's a wind behind it. We don't often see we can't see the wind really, but we see the secondary effects of the leaves blowing. So, because of our understanding of nature, we know there is wind. When we see the secondary effects of physical phenomena on this planet, whether it be war and violence or financial shenanigans or everything else, somehow we don't perceive the metaphysical wind blowing behind that. We get just stuck on these secondary phenomena, and that I think brings us down and can make us feel disheartened. So be not disheartened fellow friends, there's a much of a way to go and yet much to do upon the way. And so, saying that, I've said enough for now, I think. I'll leave it for the rest. As always, stay well, stay healthy, and stay grounded. And I think I'll leave you with the spinning chair. Cheers.